Hello everyone, welcome to Caroline's Craft Tree. So today I'm just going to do a little bit of hand stitching with you. Recently I've had a number of people ask me about the hand stitching and that they would like to see it, so that's what I'm doing. I'm working on my January freebie and I was going to do some stitching, so I thought perfect time to turn on the camera. Now I use this piercing mat from Stamping Up. I don't believe they make them anymore, and they make about 5 different sets. I'm just going to dig some out of my drawer here and show you. So like this one is the festive paper piercing pack. Now I've been lucky enough to get quite a few. I've found most of mine on Facebook. So they do go with dies and whatnot that they have. So this one has 3 piercing mats with different shapes, and this one is eclectic paper piercing pack. And again, this has a star and some other shapes, and then again more shapes. So they're fun to use. I really like them. And the one that I have is the Essentials pack. That's the one I use the most of. So there's those, and if you look on, like I say, I got on mine on Facebook. The first ones I got from somebody that I bought some stuff off. But that's what I use. But I used to make a template, and you can very easily do that. I hope you can see the holes. So I just made a template, and you can just freehand it or measure them out, and you can make weird designs. I hope you can see the holes in that. And then this one here is a little bit of a zigzag, which I just freehand the holes, so you don't need one of these. So I have this handy little tool. It is a sewing needle in a cork, and I find it works the best. So I just lay this on there. I decide where I want my holes. I usually line up the edge with these lines right here. So my edge is usually right here, along here. But I do vary it depending on what I'm doing and where I want them. But usually when I'm doing a tag or something. And then I just go along and I just punch through. It's definitely not quick, but it does not take forever either. I find the hand stitching very, very peaceful, and usually I do it at night while I watch YouTube or stuff. So you can see now, there, and you can see the back. You do get that bump on the back, but not a big deal whatsoever. So now I'll do the end here. And sometimes I just have to judge on where to start or end the hole. I don't like them too close to the edge, but I don't want them very far away either. And because of the rounded edges, not sure if you can see where my 2 holes are, but I'm just going to put one just kind of offset, and I just eyeball that one, just so then I can get around that corner. Now you can do any shapes. I mean, pin stitching is the same thing really, which I've done on circles, squares, etc. And I've done a little series of tutorials on that. I do have a playlist of sewing and pin stitching and whatnot, so feel free to go watch that. I am going to put some things on the top of this tag. but I'm going to do that after I've sewn it because I want the things on top of the sewing. Almost done with the holes. And same here, I'm just going to freehand there and there because it might not quite line up. So there is all the holes in there that quick. And this is just a cheap piece of that foam sheet from the dollar store. This happened to be really wide, which was perfect. But I have just glued the thin ones together and did that as well. So I'm going to use, it's kind of a purplish blue colored thread, and that's just embroidery floss. I find it easy to work with, and I have a ton. So when I'm doing something, of course you're going to have a knot because you've got to start and finish your thread, but I like to try to go around all the way around twice. So that's always an idea. I measure, I just take my thread, run it around, and then I double it and give it a little bit extra. But I just thought I'm going to do something a little different on this. And I'm going to turn it this way. And I'm going to do some zigzagging on some of it. So I'm just going to go, I'm just going to eyeball it. And put my hole kind of in the middle of the other holes. Hopefully that shows up. Because then when I come there, then I can do a little bit of zigzagging. Just to give it a little something extra. I know a lot of people when they're sewing on their machines, they like to do different stitches. So this is my way of doing different stitches. I sometimes do cross stitches on them. Zigzag, straight stitch of course. And I have done some fancier stitches, which I believe I've got some tutorials on those. And let's do a few down here just because we can. So now there'll be straight stitches and zigzags along in there. So let's start stitching. Now I might fast forward through some of this because other words it could be very, very boring. So I'm just going to bring my thread through. I'm going to leave enough to tie a knot. Just hold that on the back and in one hole and up the other. So I will go around twice because I'm doing every second stitch. So then the next time around I will get all the stitches that I missed. Now like I say, it's not quick, but it doesn't take forever. Unless you get your thread knotted up a whole bunch of times like this, which is not uncommon. And if you don't pull hard to start, when you do get a knot, they normally will come out quite easily. I do use, all my embroidery floss is DMC. I have used the cheap stuff, and yes, it works, but you will end up getting more knots. That's what I have found. I usually try to keep my fingers close to my work so you can see the start of the zigzag. Just that little piece that's along the bottom. Like I say, I will usually do this type of stuff in the evening. And I'll listen to YouTube. It's kind of when I get caught up on all the people that I follow on YouTube. and quite often it takes me longer than normal because I get sidetracked and I get watching the YouTube instead of watching what I'm sewing. And yes, I have missed many stitches because I'm too busy watching my computer screen instead of paying attention to what I'm stitching. But most of them can be fixed without tearing them apart. And I don't know, if there's a mistake, it just kind of adds a little more to whatever I'm making. So the actual time on how long it takes to do this, I'd actually have to time it. I did time one thing that I made, and it only took me 10 minutes. It wasn't a card like this. It seemed to me it was just an embellishment of some kind. And it took me 10 minutes to punch the holes and do the 2 little rows of stitching on it. So I don't worry about how long it takes me. I enjoy doing it. So if it takes me 5 minutes or it takes me an hour, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyways. The less I stress over stuff like that, the better it is. So I'm not sure if this will get posted before or after the January freebie, but this is part of my January freebie kit, and I'm doing a whole little tutorial on what I'm doing for the monthly freebies. So either check previous videos because it's either already posted, or keep an eye out because it's going to be posted in a day or so. But I just, like I say, in one hole, out another hole, and then when I redo it, then I'll get the other side of the hole, or the other stitches that I've missed. Every now and again, I like to, you can't see this, but I like to hold my work upside down, let the string dangle, and it untwists it. Just the way I do the hand stitching, I kind of turn the needle in my hand all the time. So then after a while, then the thread starts to crinkle up because it's been twisted so much. I've tried to think about not twisting it in my hand, but it always happens. It's just the way I sew. So I make do with it, and I just figure it out and go from there. And I'm not sure why, but sometimes the thread knots up a lot, and other times I can do a whole project and it never knots up at all. So sometimes not really sure why. But yes, this is how I hand sew. And I love it. I love the look that it gives in a journal. Sometimes I find the sewing machine just seems a little harsh on the paper. And because I can't have my sewing machine in my craft room, it's actually out on my porch. And even though it is set up and all that I gotta do is go out there and sew, I just I don't know, I just don't enjoy going out there and taking my stuff out there, etc. Which is one reason, but the main reason is I find it relaxing. And I love the look, and I feel it gives the projects just that much more personality. And my sewing machine sewing never turns out as nice as what other people's does. I watch people do hand stitch or machine stitching on their paper, and it looks fabulous. And they do like these wavy stitches, and or they have decorative stitches. I don't really have decorative stitches on my machine. And it looks wonderful. And I tried to do the little wavy stitches and go over it and make it look messy and stuff. And when I'm done, I look at it and I'm like, kind of like, blah. It's ugly. Why I think that, I have no idea. Because it's probably not. But, just the way it is. So, sometimes when I'm stitching, you can see this end here, how it gets a little bit curled. Now I find that when it gets too curly, it can knot up easier. So I'll just trim that little curl off, and that helps it not knot up. So I hope you've tried some stitching. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off, and when I get back to here, I'll flip it back on, and we'll continue. The main reason for doing that is my camera is going to shut off pretty quick anyways, because it only runs for a certain length of time, and then it turns itself off. So rather than it turning itself off and I don't realize it, I'll just do it now and get to the end of this. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I've reached the end. So now here is the end, and the last hole is going through the back, actually to the front. So I'm just going to come back up that same hole as I started. Now here I usually measure, do I have enough string to go around the second time, which I'm pretty sure I do, because the end is right there, so I've got maybe a foot, so I should be fine. So now I'm just going to backtrack and go the opposite way, or the same way, depending on how my holes work out. But I'm going to get that hole that I missed. Or stitch, I guess, would be more. So now you can see how that's filling it in and making your solid stitch. Now you could leave it just that way, it's up to you. But now I'm going to go all the way around again, and then when I get back to the other end, then I will tie it together. And sometimes I will do all straight stitch, sometimes I'll zigzag, sometimes both, sometimes a small zigzag and or a big one. It all depends on my mood and where it's going. Some pieces I think would look better with a big zigzag. I do like doing this straight stitch and a zigzag together. It gives it just that little bit of extra character. I'll show you in a second when I'm done this little stretch of zigzag here. I mean, there's not much difference between this and just regular sewing on and stitching on something. I do find it easier if I punch my holes before. I have tried an awl, but I find the holes are too big. And I just want it big enough for my needle to go through. I'm not using a huge needle. It's a fairly small needle, but it's got a long eye, which makes it easier for me to thread. That's why I just came up with putting a sewing needle into a cork, and it works perfectly. Love it. And so simple, and I have lots of corks. I have tons of sewing needles. So you can see there the little zigzag stitch, and it just adds that little extra on there. And in some of my videos I have shown sewing on lace, doing beads on the side while you're stitching, and lots of pin stitching tutorials and whatnot like that. I have tried to come up with some fancy stitches, and I did do a few. My issue is I want the back to look just as good as the front, because typically you sew at the end so then you can see it. If you're not going to see the back side of your stitching, it really doesn't matter then, but usually when I stitch, you can see the back side as well. But I did do a little star pattern. Pretty sure I did a video of that. And also some hearts, which turned out really, really cute. I haven't done those for a while. I'd probably have to look at the video just to figure out how to do it again. Because sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, doing the stitches in the right order. Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward through some of this, because I don't want you to get bored, and I don't want it to be like a big, huge hour-long video or something. So fast forward it, and then when I get to the end, I will go back to normal time and show you how I tie it off and whatnot. Okay, fast. Okay, so I'm coming up on the last few stitches, and I'm going to have just enough thread. I really like it when I can do the whole rounds of stitching with one thread. Not always possible, but it's nice when it happens. Okay, last stitch. So now I've got both of my threads at the back. And I am just going to tie it in a knot. And I usually do 3 knots. Why I do 3, I don't really know. Sometimes 2 doesn't quite hold. Now before I cut those off, I'm going to grab, I've got some of this. This is a Stampin' Up! Glue. And I use it because somebody gave it to me as a gift. And I really like it because it's got such a small end. And I'm going to just put a little bit of glue right on that stitch where the knot is. And that just kind of reinforces the knot. And this is the only thing I use this glue for, is for my knots. So you probably can't even see the glue on the knot. So once that's dry, I'll cut my ends off. But there's the tag. Or in this case, a library card. So if you want to see how I finish this off, what I'm going to decorate it with, go and watch the January Freebie kit, and it's on there. So hopefully you enjoyed the stitching video, and we will see you again soon. Bye.